Hey everybody, welcome to Equity Guru. Today I'm interviewing the CEO of Ashley Gold. That is ASHL on the CSE. That's Darcy Christian. Darcy, my first question for you, as a guy who spent way too many hours of COVID watching the TV show Hardcore Porn, the naming of your company, Ashley Gold, coincidental, or is it named after a very questionable reality star?
No, we IPO'd on a property that we actually no longer have. It's called the Ashley Gold property, funny enough. And that was a Timmins property. We liked it. It had a lot of potential. We ended up having to pivot a little bit and move away from it. Just, the markets were so difficult and the ability to raise cash. The option agreement was a little bit too big for us to handle. So we ended up letting it go and focusing on our properties that we picked up in Dryden. The market for acquisitions was pretty good when we were looking around, and we managed to get these pretty good properties with a lot of gold occurrences on them, for a good price, and we own them 100%. So everything that we do on them, there's no option payments going to cash for someone else, and it's all going, into the ground. So that's why we did it. Yeah.
Okay. So we don't have to worry about you picking up the Love Island project or the 90 Day Fiance region or something.
No, I don't think so. Maybe that's maybe a good idea.
It might be good for SEO purposes.
Yeah.
So to those that don't know, Ashley, like, how would you describe it in 50 words or less?
50 words or less. Okay.
That's always a challenge for a resource company executive, by the way. Just
yeah. Oh, I've already given up. Okay, 3, 5. Okay, I got to stop talking here. So with Ashley, like, we ended up IPOing. Everyone says they got a tight share structure, but we actually we IPO'd with 19 million shares, and currently we have 24 million shares out. So we've structured the company really well. Our big shareholders are very sticky. They want to see us actually get to production. I don't know if that's really my dream necessarily, or if a big guy comes and takes us out before, that would be a lot easier, I think. But yeah, and our projects have a lot of merit. They have historical gold in them, some high grade, some wider intercept bulk tonnage. So I think that, in our market cap right now is probably we closed a little over 2 million today. So very, very small micro cap with a drilling program that's funded.
so in a sea of gold explorer companies that are kind of tapping out right now and saying the market's just too hard for us.
Mm-hmm.
You're in a place where, because you're early stage and on historic properties,
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to go out there and build a road. You don't have to go out there and wire things up or convince people that mining is an okay thing. All you got to do basically is the early stages of exploration, which aren't very expensive. Maybe double up on a few holes that were there 50 years ago.
Yeah.
And wait for the markets to come back.
Exactly.
As I see it.
Which I thought would have happened already, but seems to be taking a lot longer than I expected.
It always takes a lot longer than everyone expects.
Yeah.
Your origin story here is interesting to me, because I meet a lot of guys that run, a gold explorer here, a rare earth explorer there, and they're generally markets guys that, have been around the traps and have had 10 or 12 other shells, and they go in for a couple of years, and first time they hit trouble, they move on to the next thing. Tell us where you came from as opposed to that.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird situation. I'm a geologist, but my background has been oil and gas exploration for most of my career. Back in 2015, oil prices really fell, and it was hard to find work for a long time. I ended up getting involved with the investor relations company and learning the ropes that way, representing a few junior gold explorers. We did pretty good representing those companies, and they're still around today. And from that, I gained again, I guess the requisite experience to be able to know that I shouldn't be wanting to do this, but for some reason I've got into it for my sins of the past. It's having having a company that provides no cash flow. You're at the mercy of the markets constantly. It's not a stress-free environment, and it's almost, I'm almost guilty, to be able to pay myself a salary, even though it's not very much, because that's share capital. That's people have invested into it. They want to see the maximum amount go to the ground. So
the boy's got to eat in the
yeah,
meantime.
I know. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know.
But what I find interesting is in talking to you briefly prior to this interview, you were prepping to go out to the side of the mountain, basically out to the project, not to stand in a polished hard hat and watch everyone do the work, but you're going to be out there lugging rocks to try and save a bit of cash.
Yeah.
While a lot of your compatriots, your colleagues, are out at Hollybird.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the reality of where we are right now. We're so small that if we can go out and save 10 or 20 grand here or there, that's a lot, for us. So until we're recognized as a as a real investable company, which some people have, but I don't think the masses have really believe that we're trying to do what we're trying to do in creating some value over the long term. Then I can't justify paying someone else to do it when I can go out and lug rocks around. We've got our experienced guys that are going out with us to help us
right,
prospect in the right spots.
All hands on deck.
Yeah.
CEOs with dusty fingernails, man, that's where it's at. I gather that it's a small crew, and the work that needs to be done can be easily done by a small crew. Mm-hmm. But retail investors, they do want to have an idea that there's going to be some news flow. Do you think that from Howie Lake that'll be where the bulk of the news will be coming from, or will there be work done on the other projects as well?
Yeah, we're actually going to head out to all three of the projects when we're out there. They're all within a few kilometers of each other, so it makes sense to go and check them out. All three of them have mineral occurrences on them, and I would say, the drilling's going to commence here next week, unless there's some little delays or anything, but I don't expect that to be the case. So once we're drilling, I guess we'll be walking around prospecting on the Tabor property as well for a few days, making sure we get the program started, maximizing our dollars with footage, and then we'll head down to the Howie property and start sampling and planning some channel samples across some of the known mineralized zones, and we'll see what comes of that. Dynasty's had some pretty good success next door at their Thundercloud property, so we're hoping to duplicate that, and any news that they get that is positive will probably have a positive effect on us.
Sure. Yeah. You're definitely surrounded by other guys that are, I guess, more advanced in terms of work that's been done. Mm-hmm. But that's an interesting prospect going forward, because if any one of those guys finds what they're looking for, first thing they're going to do is look to expand their land, and you are their expansion.
Yeah.
What do you think is the realistic likelihood that someone's going to come knocking on your door and say, "Listen, man, what's it going to cost to get you out of here?"
Yeah, I could see a consolidation happening in the area. The Wabigoon it's a greenstone belt, quite similar to the Abitibi. Very little exploration's gone on in the area compared to the Abitibi, both, particularly in Ontario, but also in Quebec as well. And, I think that with success, people are going to start coming in. We already see it. When we first got these properties, there was quite a bit of open acreage around us and whatnot. And, we went and picked up little bits and pieces that we thought would be nice accretive things to our property holding. But now it seems like most of the property in the immediate area is snapped up. So people are waiting to see here. I know Rob McEwen came into Dynasty in the last placement. He's no slouch in the gold industry, and if he likes it, I think that he sees some sort of potential in the area, and it could be a large district style play eventually.
For sure. I like the fact that your guys can basically drive into town for lunch.
Yeah.
You don't have to be flown around by choppers, and this is a part of the world where you can explore year round. You don't have to basically, as soon as the weather gets a bit wet, go home.
Yeah.
So this could really accelerate things for you. Assuming you find in the channel samples, in the early geophysics, what you're looking for, how realistic is it, do you think, for you to start going full on drill time?
Well, I think that'll take a little bit of time, but probably just because of capital constraints. I think like there's enough opportunity there that I would love to go and put some holes in the ground, but like we said, because we're a micro cap and we're very small, we have to be really careful about how much money we raise now, because we want to make sure that the people that are in do well, and the people that get in will do well. I don't want to dilute out to 100 million shares quickly to be able to do that. So I would say we're probably a year away from that. But that being said, I fully expect 2 to 3 programs a year, drilling programs a year, and maybe even more, kind of winter, summer type deal. Winter will be good for geophysics as well in the area.
Is there a prospect for partners in that? Maybe some JVs?
We've talked to a few groups, particularly when things were quite dire, as potential options, I guess, to make sure that we keep the lights on and get through it. But we managed to raise a little bit of cash here in order to fund the program and whatnot. And for now, we're gonna take it on our own, try to build some more value. I'd hate to give it away, until at least there's in my opinion, a fair value of the properties, and I don't think we're quite there yet. So
sure. Well, look, in the last month, things have certainly started getting interesting. You've moved from about 6.5 cents up to 11 cents today.
Yes.
So a double in a month isn't a bad thing for those that have held on.
No, that's
showing those early stage guys that there's some blood in the veins yet.
Yeah.
What are you hearing from? I'm assuming you've got guys that have been around for a while that have been, they're fighting the long fight. They're not traders. Yeah. What are you hearing from them as they see that activity start to pick up?
Well, I'm going to grab a beer with a couple of them after work today, and I think they're going to be pretty happy. When we IPO'd, it was tooth or nail to get the thing done. We had to we originally were trying to raise $1 million, and we had to cut that back to 700,000. So we were cash deficient kind of right out of the gate, but we kept at it. All those guys, with Lee Jones in Calgary have really stepped up and helped us out on both the IPO and other financings where they could. Again, it's a tough market for them too, and they have a responsibility to their clients to make good decisions too. So they love this. They want to see at least $1 before they sell, is what they keep telling me and stuff. So that'll be a few years away probably, but who knows, I guess. But
well, look,
they're in it for a long haul.
If you take out the extremes, you're pretty much at a high since your IPO in a market where nobody's talking about gold. Like gold is it's like religion and politics. You don't talk about it around the family dinner table anymore.
Yeah, that's right.
But you guys, you raised cash, even as an early stage group. You're doing work. You're getting the activity and the volume up. Those are unexpected wins for a company that's in your place.
Yeah, it was, and I'm not saying it was easy. And we didn't raise as much as we wanted to, but we raised enough, and it's a good story, and we're not swinging for the fence. We're just trying to confirm, get people excited, people wanted to see drilling. We've been around for a little over a year, and we hadn't drilled, and I'm glad that we could finally reward the shareholders with that, and hopefully it comes in great and the market likes it, and we'll get a re-rate and everyone will be happy.
As a geo, I'm imagining that you've gone out to the properties and walked around a little bit. On a scale of 0 to 10, what's your enthusiasm scale of what you can see with your eyes?
Well, there's a lot of outcrop, and to be honest with you, I haven't been out to the Tabor property yet. I'm heading next Tuesday. We're going out for a week, so that'll be good. I'm really excited to get out because, you can read old reports and stuff and whatnot, but until you see what's happening, and particularly with the structure, you're just kind of going by what the last guy thought, and it'll be nice to get my eyes on it and get my own opinions formulated on where we should head next.
Business class or economy?
Flair.
Oh my God, not even economy. Holy cow. Are you sending your luggage by post?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Our probably all our equipment will get lost, but
right.
Yeah.
Wow. That's you're really protecting your cash at that point.
No choice.
It's oil and gas has probably prepared you for the ups and downs of metals in a pretty good way. But what are the lessons that you learned from that business that you think will bear fruit on this business?
Well, in my opinion, cash flow is important, and it's not really necessarily attainable in the junior mining market. I'm still looking at different ways that maybe we can try to monetize some gold earlier than later, by some bulk samples and whatnot, and looking at other opportunities going forward that maybe are a bit more advanced. But the reality is that you got to just, when things are bad, you have to have a good property that you believe in, and you got to just keep your head down, and if you need to cut costs, and this is something that George, our chairman, has really hammered into me as well, is that our projects right now, as they're sitting, we don't need to spend a lot of money on them right now if we don't want to, and we have the optionality to be able to do that. And I think that's what's made us survive through the time. We picked up some good deals, and we'll continue to be frugal, so to speak, with our spends. But it would be nice to be able to do, right now we're doing the necessities list. It'd be nice to do a little bit of nice to haves that could really add some longer term value to the stories.
People who are listening that maybe aren't resource investors might sort of look at it and say, well, this doesn't sound like it's going to the moon. It doesn't sound like something where I've got to invest in it today because otherwise I'm going to miss out.
Mm-hmm.
I think what's really interesting though is if somebody sold a small rental apartment in Burnaby, they could legitimately buy over half of your stock. And that presents an opportunity. So obviously you're doing the work. It's not going to happen overnight, but you go out there, throw a couple of drills in the ground and get what you expect to get. Suddenly a $2 million market cap looks very small.
Yeah.
For legitimately 3 potential gold mines.
Yeah. And I know that, 20%, I know where 20% of the stock is, and I know that it's not going anywhere. So yeah, it is. It's actually been a little bit of a hamstring to us IPOing with a low float, because we're looking at trying to get certain strategic groups in or whatever, and they're like, well, 10% right now is 200 or 300 grand investment. And they're like, we don't dabble in anything less than $500,000, and really we'd like to get over $1 million. So
Yeah.
it's been a little bit tough. We've had to kind of find the right people, right groups that want to come in and are willing to get a position now. And you know, if we prove the pudding, then we'll you know, they'll come back and play probably, and I'll have more, you know, more runway, I guess, to grab a bigger position.
And when they do, like, you know, grabbing 10% of the float is gonna torque that share price in a, you know, fairly severe way.
Oh, huge. Yeah. No, we're in a good spot, I think. And you know, I'm excited to get this program started, and hopefully we get the results that we, you know, I think we're going to get, but you never know, right? And I don't know how the market's going to perceive it. You know, I've seen a lot of really good intercepts over the last 6 months to a year that stock hasn't done a damn thing on it. So
yeah, I think part of that is, you know, when the markets are low, everyone hides. And what I always think is the better approach is, like, I'm one of those guys that says put your news out on a Friday, because then people have the weekend to digest it.
Yeah.
Instead of 78% of the market putting it out at 6 a.m. on a Monday and no one's saying anything.
Yeah.
So I always really think that when the markets are a little bit weak, that's the time you want to start thumping your chest,
100%.
showing people what you have, because you've got the forum all to yourself.
And it's so nice to be able to go and tell people about the story, when I really do think that the market, the junior market, and well, the junior precious metals market in general, is so undervalued. So it's not like I'm trying to sell some smoke and mirrors to them. I really do believe that you know, really any junior stock, well, any good junior stock, but you know, ours in particular, I think is a good investment. I think people can make a good return on it relatively quickly, hopefully. So
the way I've heard it described is some of the projects are now valued at their gravel potential.
Yeah, that's pretty much. Yeah, the Tabor,
just start selling soil.
Yeah, that's right. The Tabor property we have is actually a lease, so you know, the cost to carry it's very little. It allows a little bit more flexibility in sampling and whatnot. So, and you know, it was an old historic you know, production. They didn't pull a lot out of it, but what they did was high grade and good, and we're gonna try to confirm all that.
Right. It's nice to have a map to follow that other people have already put some time and effort into.
Mm-hmm. Oh, for sure.
But I get the sense that being surrounded by guys that are pulling metal out of the ground and drills out of the ground is probably just as good a guide. How much collegiality is there in a region like that, where, you know, you can drive over the hill and there's someone else working on their property? Like, how much information is shared as opposed to, you know, put a big black canvas over the gate?
I don't know. Like, I've introduced myself to all of the players, all the public players, and a few private ones. There's another IPO coming down the pipeline in the area, and to me, it's the Dryden area is actually pretty close knit in the exploration world, and you know, a lot of the geologists that have worked on this program have worked on this program and stuff like that, and I've had you know, really good conversations with some of the other CEOs, and I think it's been great. Like, in my mind, any win is good for all of us, right? So I think collaboration is important, obviously within the confines of public disclosure, but you know.
Let's talk about the ESG side of things. A lot of people who follow our website are younger investors, and not always, you know, looking at resources for the, you know, the obvious reasons of there's a reputation of, you know, we're damaging the environment, we're not paying attention to the Indigenous people. What does the situation look like on the ground in terms of local nations that you might have to be dealing with, permitting, the township and their preference towards or against mining, like, and what can you do in the process of exploring to mitigate any sort of damage to the local surrounds?
Yeah, good question. I've actually been pleasantly surprised so far with the ease at which we were able to gain an exploration permit. We reached out to 5 different First Nations groups, including the Métis First Nations, and there's a process for them to be able to comment on what we're doing and concern, and we got some good feedback from them. One of the holes we'll be drilling here will be relatively close to the Tabor Lake, and they just wanted to make sure that that none of the drill tailings are going to head back into the water system and stuff like that. So we employed a little bit of extra stuff to make sure that doesn't happen. And I think a lot of like a lot of things, it's communication with the local communities. Mining for the area could be a really, really positive thing for the First Nations in the area. There's there is a history of gold production there for a long time, but I think that, and that's kind of how I approach these things, is I don't want to come in and you're not going to get anywhere either if you come in banging around and saying this is what we're doing. No, not going to happen. You need to engage the communities early, include them in the benefits of this early. So that's what we've been doing.
I think that word "early" is the key word. I've seen a lot of companies kind of come in at the end and say, "Oh, and by the way, First Nations, we're going to build a mine." And I think going in there like way before that and saying, "Okay, so what do you guys need?" as opposed to what we need, is really the way to go. And I think a lot of companies are starting to learn that now. Is there anything that you think people don't really understand about Ashley Gold that you wish they did?
I think that people are starting to understand where we are. Looking at our share structure, we've got 24 million shares out, and naturally people look at the share price and they're like, okay, well, this you're at 10 cents. Well, that's pretty fair for a junior, whatever. But then you look at a company beside us who's also at 10 cents, but they have 100 million shares out. Their market cap's 4 times more.
Right.
And I think that it's starting to take care of itself, but it has been a little bit of a eye-opening experience for me that I think that we have been hanging out a lot more undervalued than a lot of other comparable companies. So, what
price did you do your recent financing at?
Our most recent one was done at 7 cents. We IPO'd at 10 cents, so that kind of broke my heart a little bit, having to raise some money at below the IPO price. But I think that we got to keep the lights on. We got to keep things moving forward. Otherwise, it's going to go to zero. So yeah, that was the price. We've got a warrant at 12 cents, which I think will be pretty important for us in raising some more capital. It should, with a good program, and our market will go up. People will start exercising these warrants, and that kind of replenishes the coffers without actually.
It's nice to hit that warrant price just a couple of weeks after you close the deal.
Yeah, and I think I would say that everyone that got involved at the 7 cent placement is probably pretty happy right now, including myself. But I'll never be. I won't ever sell my shares because that's signing to the market that I don't believe in what I'm doing, and that's not.
Yeah.
So
Well, I can see that you believe in what you're doing, and I think the market is starting to believe in it as well. So congratulations on that, man. There are a lot of bodies floating by on the river right now that of your competitors that have raised a lot more money or been around a lot longer, or but you're in there with. I think the beauty of having such a small starting point is everybody gets to make money along the way. If you'd come out at $1 and had to justify that for the next 6 months, you'd be just losing money every day. But
That's
coming
right.
out
Yeah,
nice and small, it really gives everyone an opportunity to be on the boat for the ride.
that's right. And it's an IPO, and there's no skeletons in the closet like an RTO sometimes is, where you're rolling back shares and you got pissed off legacy shareholders that are just going to blow up the stock as soon as it happens and stuff. So I like the idea of a fresh IPO, small, get it up and running and build the value.
Yeah. Well, congrats, Jeff, so far, dude. It's doing what it was supposed to do. It does what it says on the tin, which is one of the biggest wins you can have at this point for a micro cap. For people that are thinking about getting in, like, what do you think the news flow is going to look like over the next month, 2 months, 3 months?
Yeah, we should have pretty consistent news flow over, probably, one to two releases a week. I would say one release per week. We're going to start getting a lot more videos out and explaining things. I like to do those videos because it gives me a bit more time, and sometimes it's hard to explain in writing what you could explain, with your voice in a few minutes, and
For sure.
show people why you're excited in the area. So I plan on releasing pretty consistent news over the next little while.
Beauty. Well, I look forward to talking to you again, man.
Yeah. Thanks, Chris.
That's Darcy Christian from Ashley Gold. ASHL is the ticker symbol. And I'm glad that I got in at that race.
Yeah.
We'll talk soon.
Sounds good.